Hello, my name is Ana Grisel Alvarez and I am with the Nuclear Waste Program here at Ecology. Today we're sharing with you interviews and conversations that we had with some of the staff that are going to retire in 2023. Naina Menard, John Price, and Dib Goswami. What brought you to Ecology in the first place?
Well, golly geez, that was so long ago, and probably what brought me here was having stable employment without having the fear of being laid off, and plus having challenging work. When I came here some 17 years ago, my kids were young. I needed to have stability over everything else like that, and to be able to have good health benefits and interesting work and the ability to grow through the organization.
Did you already have a degree by the time you got here?
Yes, I have bachelor's in zoology and a master's in biological science. So yes, I already had my 2 degrees, and I had no desire to go further in my education than that.
I'd been working in radioactive cleanup and waste management for 20 years. I was living in Ohio at the time, and my wife's family was all in the Seattle area, and she kept bothering me to move up here, so I looked for jobs in the Pacific Northwest. I knew that Hanford was the big deal up here and it fit well with my capabilities, so I found a state job and that brought me up here.
Awesome.
Well, when I saw the advertisement for this position, I was at a graduate school doing my PhD. And I had a really good knowledge about the Hanford side, the problems and issues. And I immediately thought this is the job where I can be able to use my knowledge and expertise. Hanford is very challenging, complex, and deals with public stakeholders, tribal nations, and with the environmentalists. And you have to be credible on your views, on your opinions, and I like those challenges. And what I think, if a job is not challenging, there is no push to strive to do your best. So I thought not every jobs provide that challenges or provide that scope. So I immediately liked that advertisement. I applied and I was selected. I like the way I interact with the people, tribal nations and everything, public, and that's really of interest of me. And over the last 30 months, I'm really thankful for serving the state at the capacity as a lead hydrogeologist. Thank you.
Out of your years at Ecology, what are you most proud of, or what was your most challenging accomplishment?
Well, I've been here, as I said, 31 plus years. So I am proud of quite a number of things that I have done here over the past 31 years. Well, one of the greatest things that I want to mention, a couple of those, the number one would be that my work as a team leader, teamwork with the people, with my fellow hydrogeologists, chemists, engineers, and dealing with those public and stakeholders through our groundwater team members and districts. What I learned in those jobs, I learned a lot from the others, and I shared my knowledge. So it's a reciprocal things, and I thought that this is one of the things that I'm so successful in convincing the people, and people took me as a credible person or whatever, always give my opinion with solid examples and background. So I really fortunate to lead my groundwater team as well as dealing with the public and stakeholders. That's one of the primary things that I want to highlight first. And the second thing I'm also proud of, when I first joined in 1994, I immediately, as I said before, these Hanford projects are very challenging, and there's no one good answer, there's no one size fits all concept. So at that time, public stakeholders and regulators were struggling how to move forward with the groundwater remediation. Can we develop a strategy? So I was leading on behalf of Ecology Nuclear Waste Program. I was leading the groundwater strategy development along with EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and Department of Energy. That job taught me how to interact with different groups of people. 3 tribal nations always with us for discussions and us providing their comments. Then the Department of Health, then Hanford Advisory Board, then you just name it, all those environmental Columbia River group, then Hanford Watts group. I dealt with so many groups of people and academia, and it was a big knowledge for me. The biggest thing was, how can you come up with a common consensus? That is a very important thing. So what I propose, and everybody agreed, and everybody came forward, that let's talk about the things that we agree with, not the disagree. So what we did in the process, we went through the process of let's talk about what you agree. So we came up with few agreements. There are lots of disagreements, but few agreements. So we started our strategy based on those agreements. For example, number 1, I think it was number 1, and still now, is that protect the Columbia River from contaminants going to the river. The river is already polluted. And the second is, don't wait for technology that you don't have. And don't wait for development of those technology, because that will take long time. Whatever things you can do from the available technology, let's start with that and try to act on that. And at the same time, invest your knowledge and funding and everything in developing the technologies. The thing is that let's stop spread of contamination. Let's stop contamination going to the river. In the meantime, let's stress on the development of the technology so that we can address those complex issues when the technology is developed. So that is the second thing I want to mention about why I'm proud of my involvement. And third thing I want to mention, as I said, I'm a problem solver. I like problem solving and the out of the box thinking. And as the lead person, the department gave me so much of freedom. That is why I'm thankful to them. I had to collaborate with not only those tribal nations, the academia, Pacific Northwest Laboratory, and all the scientific community. I shared my knowledge and I learned my knowledge. In the process, I gathered so much of information. I still am learning things even after 31 years. So I came up with a lot of my ideas on, and the way we need to progress. I made several publications in reputed journals, in the workshops and of international repute, and my presentations of those workshops as well as a lot of those people. So I'm proud of the opportunity that I got from nuclear program or ecology. At the same time, I dealt with those our leaders representing the Senate as well as legislative, and I happened to talk to them. At the same time, I provided my expert opinion through affidavit when the litigation came. So I think I'm proud of the things contribution that I made and the opportunity that government, this job gave me. Then doing those things, I'm also proud of the award that I received from not only from the state as well as from the outside of the state. For example, I was selected as an expert to develop a regulations called for nuclear facilities, especially for the commercial nuclear facilities of the whole entire United States. The American Nuclear Society asked me to give my service to develop how to monitor those facilities. That's a commendable job, and it's now not only followed in US, many other countries in the reference. So I'm proud of that. So these are the main things I just want to mention. And as I said, I'm invited speakers for National Academy of Science and lots of those prestigious places. I'm really proud of those things. Thank you.
Oh, there have been several. Believe it or not, I started out as a permit writer for the double shell tanks, and after a few years I became the project manager for environmental restoration. One of the biggest accomplishments there was actually securing the record of decision for the 100 DNH area. It was the first final rod that Ecology had been the lead for 20 years that we accomplished. Other things that were continue to be challenging as a section manager is the single shell tanks and coming to a good disposition with moving forward with removing waste and actually closing the single shell tank farm.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say is anything I'm proud of or accomplishments, it was always a team of people doing it. So I'm proud of what I did as part of the team, but also part of what the team did. But you know, that's probably a long list because I've been working here 20 years and we've done a lot of cleanup in 20 years. But I remember that when I first got to Hanford, along the Columbia River, all of the ground was torn up because there was all kinds of radioactive contamination that had been dug up. And now I drive out there, I do windshield tours, and it's all backfilled and it's clean and it's revegetated. So I'm very proud of that. But there's a list of other things too. One of the things we did is we studied the Columbia River and we collected fish samples and water samples and sediment samples because people had asked, are there problems in the Columbia River from Hanford? And so we did that study and found that the Columbia River is okay even though Hanford is highly contaminated. So that's another one I'm really proud of.
Reflecting on your long-time career with Ecology, how have you seen the Hanford cleanup mission change?
Oh, I've seen it changed a lot because when I started, the Columbia River corridor, the shoreline along the Columbia River was the big focus. And that's all, most of it really cleaned up now. And so the focus should be shifting to the central part of Hanford. Unfortunately, I don't see the Department of Energy doing a lot of digging of soil up there, which needs to be done. They're knocking down contaminated buildings, but the big shift has been from the Columbia River up to the central part of Hanford.
The Hanford cleanup mission, what we have done through tripartite agreement, we set milestones to achieve our mission and goals. And over the last 31 years, those goals or those milestones have been changed. And I fully agree with those changes. There are two major reasons for the changes. The number one is there's no novel technology or novel type of guidance that you can address the complex issues. For example, dealing with toxic chemicals as well as radionuclides and mixed together. The second most important thing is Hanford is a huge site. It's an enormously big site. Anything you come up with, you have to apply to for such a large site. It costs a lot of money, funding, and those kind of things. So those are the two major things I think caused us to change our mission and goal time and time again as we gather the new information.
Well, when I first joined, the focus was on cleaning up along the river corridor and that faces the Columbia River, and a lot of that was surplus sites, and so the cleanup for the surplus sites was really going great guns. We were getting paperwork, closing out various waste sites, about 5 or 6 a week at that point in time, to have to evaluate, process. And so now the river corridor is almost entirely cleaned up, especially the soil. There's still a lot of groundwater work going on. And the focus has moved to the 200 area. 200 area has a lot more of the permitted RCRA units. Of course, the WTP being built, some of the other facilities to store the waste safely that can't be treated has been built, and the focus has kind of been more on the RCRA permit and getting a permit issued as opposed to the circular cleanup.
Is there a project that was unique or unusual that you worked on while you were here at Ecology?
So one of the more unique projects that we have worked on that is really quite different and not related to the development of the weapons grade plutonium is there used to be farms out on the Hanford site. They had orchards and quite a healthy system out there. But at the time they used lead arsenate to control a pest out there for the fruit trees. And as a result of spraying over the years lead arsenate, the soil down to a certain depth is contaminated with lead and arsenic, which are both very highly toxic. And so we've been working with the DOE under the CERCLA to be able to remediate that lead arsenate. Most of the fruit trees are gone now, long gone. And part of it is eventually the remediation would be applying a cover and then eventually opening it up to the public once Hanford becomes open to be able to hike on certain designated pathways out there. So that's a completely different outcome from what we usually see with our work here on the Hanford site.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot of them. I like to tell people there's a lot of weird stories about Hanford, and many of them are true. But one thing that I remember is we were studying the Columbia River and whether contamination had gotten into the Columbia River. And one of the fish in the Columbia River is the sturgeon. And the sturgeon's a really unusual fish. It can live up to 150 years. And so we thought we needed to study if there had been any impacts to the sturgeon. And so I helped convene a couple of workshops about sturgeon, and we brought experts in that knew all about sturgeon. And I learned a lot, and that was a great experience and something I really remember.
That's awesome. Were they contaminated in the air?
No,
or no?
no.
Well, I already mentioned about the project, about the development of the Hanford site, right, downwater immediate stretch. When I first joined, it was really unique for me because dealing with so many people. I am here at almost as a regulatory in the center, and you just communicate with all these things. You get differences of opinion, then how to come up with the common consensus. It took several years, by the way. It is not a straight kind of answers because of the sharing the knowledge. The public stakeholders, they wanted to know the information. Why were delaying some of the activities? Why were prioritizing this first and not the other ones? So all these different groups have different needs. And many a times also they are conflicting on each other's interests, So that was a real challenge, and this thing unique. I think that is really the situation for the Hanford side even now also, in some when we try to address problems, then there is always a pros and cons. So as a first time when I first joined, I said, oh boy, these are huge problem, but these are the opportunity for me to learn. So I consider that's a big thing that I unique. This is unique at the Hanford side. You'll find seldom in your every jobs that you look for, So I think this is one of the unique. How to bring balance with those different needs. So that is the very unique thing at the Hanford site. All our people who join and say, after I leave, they will also face the same thing. Thank you.
What advice do you have for your successors?
Well, my successors should think about before they take any action, they should think how we achieved our results so far, whatever results, how we achieved. As I said, Hanford is a complex site and how we have to come up with a decision. It's not easy. So there's always a history behind it. And whenever a new person comes, they should understand without criticizing that this should have been done. It's good for that person to provide his or her opinion, but not jump to the conclusion. See the background behind. If you see something, oh, it should have been done this way, absolutely, you are thinking at least that it should have been done this way, but try to find the reasons why it is not done that way. Okay, that's one thing. So my advice to the successor is go to the history, go to the background, and try to get knowledge and always ready to think out of the box. Always, that's my advice. As I said, there is no one solution, there is no one size fits all concept at the Hanford side. So my thing is that take a deep breath, see why these things are not done exactly how we are thinking in the last 5 years or at the beginning. So that's my advice. Thank you.
Well, when I came here, I thought that being a regulator would be an easy job. I'd been managing work elsewhere, and I thought, oh, I know how to do this work. But I found out that being a regulator is really hard. And one thing that's hard about it is you have to be confident in your decisions, but you can't be so confident that you become arrogant. So the advice is try and look at questions and issues and conflicts from the other side's point of view and try and come up with something that works for both of you.
One of the biggest things is most people throughout the state of Washington and really throughout the whole United States don't realize how complex and large the Hanford site is. And when you come on, it can be very overwhelming. So, and this is advice that I got from somebody else, give yourself a year to understand what you're doing. Give yourself another year to understand it very well. And so don't get frustrated in the short term that things seem to be overwhelming and very complex and you're not getting it quick enough. It takes time. It just takes time because this is one of the most complex, if not the most complex cleanups in the whole world.
So why is Hanford important and why should people care about?
Well, Hanford through the history was very, very important because it did, with the development of the nuclear weapons here, help to end the World War II with Japan quickly. People will debate as to whether that ended up in the long-term saving lives or not. It still was a horrific thing to drop atomic bombs on Japan, and I hope it never ever happens again. What we need to do though is clean up the Hanford site so that it's usable again, and so that we can clean up that legacy waste that not only impacts our local population here, but also was traditionally tribal lands. And being able to make the Hanford site accessible to the tribes again, I think is a very, very important thing to do. And also being able to treat the waste, contain the waste so that it doesn't contaminate the Columbia River and then spread contamination clear down to the ocean. It's very, very important work to do.
Well, Hanford site is located in the state of Washington. Our goal, our department as well as Washington State is to have clean environment, clean soil, clean air, clean water. Hanford is the most contaminated site in the world, one of the most contaminated sites. It has already contaminated the Columbia River, which these two states, Washington as well as Oregon, is considered as the one of the main artery of life. So look at the Columbia River, the water, its resources, fish, wildlife, and everything. We have to protect them. Our human health and the ecosystem is at a risk because of the Hanford contaminations. We as a ecology employee, that's our responsibility. We nuclear waste program's responsibility to clean up the Hanford site. So my suggestion to anybody coming here, their goal should be to clean the site, not only for yourself, your own health, but also for the future generations.
Wow, that's a great question. So I think one thing I see today is there's a lot of emerging contaminants that people have realized are problems, not at Hanford, but all around the country. We hear about microplastics. We hear about 6-PPD, which I can't tell you what that chemical is, but it's in tires, and when tires break down, it gets into the water, and coho salmon over on Puget Sound get killed by this chemical. And then another one we hear about is what are called PFAS and PFOS, which are chemicals in fire retardants. And so near military bases and airports, these are in the groundwater and they harm people. So I think the lesson I've learned from that is even small amounts of contamination have a lot of impact. And when you add all these contaminants together, it made me realize that a little bit of radioactive tritium from Hanford getting into the Columbia River is not okay. A little bit of radioactive technetium getting into the Columbia River is not okay. A lot of chromium getting into the Columbia River from Hanford is not okay. So it's important that we do the best cleanup we can, because there's lots of other sources of contamination in the environment, and we want to push Hanford's contribution down as low as we can.
What are you most looking forward to about retirement?
Well, I'm looking forward to having more time to take care of my body, because as you age, and certainly all of us, it's important to be physically fit. It helps you, in all aspects of life. So I'm going to have plenty of time to take care of physical fitness. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to being able to visit my kids whenever I want to and spending time with them.
Will we see you in the next marathon?
Probably not. I ran one marathon, that was enough.
Who would have thought that something as simple as relaxing would be a luxury in this today's world? I want to relax. My relax is not that sitting idle and just watch TV or these things. I'll relax. I like to do a lot of things, and which is a part of my relaxing. I love gardening, I love cooking, and I love visiting places of historical importance and cultural, ethnicity culture, diverse culture. I love, as I said, reading, to read. And one thing I have a goal, ambition actually, I want to write a book. And to write a book about my roots, how I grew up in Dib village in India, and my elementary and high school studies, where I had my education. At that time, there was no electricity. I used to walk 6 miles, going and coming to that school. But when I tell those things to my son and my grandkids, they surprise, no electricity, no these things. Where you studied on those lanterns, in this. So, and my roots with my family, and I have a family of 14th generation, so the place, and their life, and how I spend my time in my childhood and my school times versus now. Coming up from that, I completed my bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD here. It's a total different experience. Born in early 1950s in India, in those rural life, it's totally different. It's even now it has changed significantly, sudden kind of things. But I want to bring back some of those memories and share my roots with my son and grandchildren and those kind of things. That's one of the tasks that I want to complete after my retirement.
Oh, wow. There's just so many things for me to do. My hobby is showing and raising rabbits. I can devote more time to that. I can travel to different shows. One on my bucket list to do is buy a travel trailer and to travel more around the United States and do fun things. Also, too, is my oldest is getting married in September. And so I'm really hoping for grandchildren soon after that. And, we'll see what happens. But just looking forward to exploring the world more and traveling outside the United States to various areas and just enjoying life.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.